Hi, welcome. Today's video is on how to graph our concentration and absorbance data that you took during the Determining the Unknown Concentration lab. This is also a generic video on how to graph using Google Sheets. It's best if you do this alongside me, so either split your screen and have the Edpuzzle video on one side and Google Sheets on the other side, or watch the Edpuzzle video on your phone because there's an Edpuzzle app, and do this graphing on your computer, but some way where you can watch the video and do the graphing at the same time. So pause the video, go get the necessary information from your lab, and also necessary computer stuff so you can do this along with me. All right, hopefully now you're ready to go and you can watch and do the graph at the same time. So here's Google Sheets. I've already done a few things, so you need to do this also. I put in a title, so I put in Determining Unknown Concentration. You can title it any way you want. And then I took the data, which I just made up, so this is not anyone's data from the lab. But in this first column, you want to write concentration, parentheses, capital M, that's for molar, and absorbance in the next column. And then now you're going to put in your actual data points and your actual absorbance values here. Do not put in the absorbance from your unknown because we do not have a concentration value for that. We will be figuring that out after we graph your standards. So you should have 5 standards. I just put in 4, but you should have 5 standards here and then 5 absorbance readings. All right, after you put that in, I want you to highlight that area. So I'm highlighting this area. So once this is highlighted, you're going to go to Insert and then Chart. And when you do this, wow, it makes the graph already for you. And since I put the headings, it also has labeled the sides and it also labeled the title. So concentration and molarity. Absorbance is a funny unit because it doesn't have a unit. So there is no unit for absorbance. So you're just going to write the word absorbance, which you wrote up here. And then the title is always Y, which is absorbance, versus X, which is concentration. So you already have a nice graph. We're just going to add a few things to this graph. So notice how quickly we can do this. So on the right side, you see this chart editor. And we are now going to go to Customize. And we're going to customize and then scroll down until you see the series. So I'm going to click on series. And I'm going to follow this down. And I want to add a trend line. So notice we have points, and hopefully you can see that looks like a straight line. And so we are going to put a trend line in it. So click on trend line. And notice it puts a line on there. So that looks good. And now we are going to go down to label. We want to see the equation for this line. So go to label and hit use equation. Then it puts the equation up here. And then we want to put something in that's called R squared value. And click on that. So let's see what we've got. We have the graph. We have the axes labeled, we have a title, we have grid lines, now we have an equation and an R squared value. Now the equation here doesn't put the letter Y, so this equation really should read Y equals, and mine reads 2.15x plus negative 0.0225, and that is my equation. So to write your equation down, put a Y equals in front of your equation. Now this other thing, R squared value, is a statistical number that tells you how close all your points are to the line. Now the line is a best fit line, so it doesn't always touch all the points. Notice this doesn't touch this point. So if I was to draw this by hand, I would try to draw a line that goes between and close to as many points to as possible, with some above the line, this is above the line, and maybe some below the line. And so the computer actually calculates that for you. If all of the dots are exactly on the line, the R squared value would be 1. Anything less than 1, some of the points are not exactly on the line, which will happen in any type of lab when you have real data. So here I have an R-squared value, although I made my data up. It's very good. It's very close to 1. So the closer this number is to 1, the closer the points are to the line. So if you have a number that's 1, that's fabulous, or 0.99 or 0.999 or 0.98 something, that is good data. If you have something that's small, much smaller, like you have an R-squared value of 0.5 or something, that is not very good data. So I have good, at least made up data here. So here's my graph. Now, the only other thing I think I would like to add to this, because we're going to print this up and actually use it to estimate, these lines are pretty far apart. So when I print this up and want to estimate between 0.3 and 0.4, or between 0.2 and 0.3, I'd like a few more lines. So to do that, go down to where it says grid lines and ticks and click that. And it will let you do the horizontal and the vertical line. So first it said vertical axis. So I'm going to put down, and I want some minor grid lines on there. So notice it added some more lines. And then I want to do the same thing for horizontal axis. So I click on horizontal axis, and I want to put in the lines. And so there I have it. So that's a pretty good graph. So make sure you print that out. Now, when you use this graph, you are going to figure out what the concentration is, first just by printing the graph and matching the absorbance to the concentration. So if the concentration, if the absorbance was 1.0, I would go 1.0 and then I would go across until it hit this line, and then I would move it down until I read what the concentration was. That's one way to figure out the concentration of your unknown, just by physically doing it on the graph. The other way it has you do it is use this equation. So y equals 2.15x plus negative 0.0225. That's my equation. Your equation obviously will be different because you have different data. So then I'm going to plug in the absorbance I got instead of the y, and then I'm going to solve for x. And that also will tell me the concentration of my unknown. So both methods work, and you're going to compare the two as part of the questions in the lab analysis. So hopefully that helps, and you'll be able to make your own graphs. Thanks for listening.